Hi, my name is Eva Steiner, and this is my project Psychotherapists Around the Globe. I am interviewing the psychotherapists around the world and asking them the same 8 questions. I am wondering how mental health profession is in their country. Today we are going to. Thank you for taking this time for doing this interview with me. Before we start, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I'm Isabel. I was born here in Mexico City. I finished my bachelor's degree psychology like 5 years ago, and then I made a specialty in integrative psychotherapy. It's like a master's degree. I really love my job. Like I feel it's my hobby. And besides that, yeah, that's pretty much who I am.
Tell me a little bit about your culture. What is some holiday or tradition that your country
Mhm.
celebrates? And if your country would be an emotion, what emotion would it be?
My culture here in Mexico, it has two big opposites. We have like big companies and people are really focused on work. But on the other hand, we have most of our population still works at the countryside and do hand labor and they have like jobs. So it's really particular culture because these kind of people, like the ones that do more like manual jobs and stuff, work for the people that work at big companies because they don't have time to do like their own stuff. So they work at their houses. There's like this really curious reciprocity amongst Mexicans. I feel we all need each other. And our country is like really fun and happy. If Mexicans would be an emotion, I think it would be passionate because we are really passionate about like good stuff and bad stuff. No, like people would get really fun and excited about everything, but they would also like get really mad and fight about everything. So we love food is a big deal around Mexican culture. Like we have all these really kinds of dishes and traditions among Mexicans. And I feel one tradition that it's really particular about this country, it's the Day of the Dead. This is celebrated the 2nd of November, and it's a time for families and communities to honor and remember deceased loved ones. And during this holiday, they elaborate something called ofrendas, that it's like the gravesite, like in a small altar, and they put pictures and candles, and they have to put like the favorite drinks and food of their loved ones that are gone, because the tradition says that they come back on that day to earth. So these ofrendas mean like the spirits are welcome and they have to come back like to the world with the offers to nourish their souls and to remember their lives and their journeys. It's really, really fun. And the Day of the Dead, it's a celebration where families gather and they share food and they eat. So I find it really interesting because from death, that it's like a hard matter, like among all humanity, Mexicans make not only something fun or a tradition, but like a party out of it. It's pretty nice, that tradition, and it's really big here in Mexico.
And you go to the graveside
Mm-hmm.
to honor the deceased, and then you gather at house to have this party.
Yes, you like around the last days of October, you settle the ofrenda at your house. That they're like the dishes and all these flowers and stuff. And then after that, you have to put. You go to the gravesite on that day, like at night, and then like you make the party. But when you go to the street, you see like everybody with flowers and yeah, like just celebrating death. We find joy almost out of everything, even like the hard stuff. Yeah, that says a lot about Mexicans. This culture is like so hardworking, and we've had a lot of challenges with governments and with drug trafficking. But all this pain doesn't take off like the Mexican joy and love and like family gatherings.
Okay, so how did you become a psychotherapist in your country, and what is your therapeutic
Mhm.
approach?
To be a psychotherapist in Mexico, you have to study like psychology, like the major that it's like 4 years. And then you can like have your minor, I don't know, in educational psychology or organizational psychology. No, so you have to do these first 4 years at least. After that, like you're a psychologist, but you're not allowed to give therapy. So you need like to study a master's degree that we have a lot in Mexico. We have most like of the big schools of psychology. They have a master that it's really, really good. Then you study that and then you can do like another master, another course. In my case, I did this 4 years. Then I studied some of neuro-linguistic programming before doing my master's degree. It's a really good approach. But after that, I specialized in contextual therapies and in integrative therapy. So the master I chose, it's like kind of eclectic, like has some systemic, some psychodynamic, some humanistic, some cognitive behavioral. So they give you like this whole picture and then you have to specialize yourself in something. So I chose contextual therapies that they're like third generation, like ACT, DBT, FAP. So all these, more based like in the context and in the skills that people have. I did this because I specialize mostly in teenagers, and yeah, so that's really helpful for them.
Is there any other way you can work with people in mental health field?
It's becoming really popular to be a coach, and they have like this training. I believe it's like 2 years. They're not allowed by law to call it therapy because there was a time in Mexico, like a decade ago, where everybody gave therapy to everybody, and they didn't have like the credentials, so they stopped this. But yeah, you can work among that, or counseling, or mentoring. Like people at high schools that work at schools have to study like some mentoring stuff or some counseling stuff to work with teenagers. So yeah, but like to be a formal psychotherapist, you have to do like all this training.
Said that everybody gave therapy to everyone. How did they stop it?
They're really still trying to stop it. I believe it's more awareness to educate people, like when you go to therapy to ask like for their credentials or their number. It's more like telling everybody and like talking the importance of mental health and saying like you cannot trust your mental health and your issues to just everyone know that goes there. That for one part. And the other one, schools of psychotherapists in Mexico, like we have like a psychodynamic school, and they started telling when they knew someone wasn't a psychotherapist, they said like, no, he isn't or she isn't a psychotherapist, and they closed like the office. So that's more difficult to do, but they are also doing it like to protect people and to protect people's mental health. This happens also because therapy is really expensive here. So some people wanted like to get some help, and in social security they have like really bad psychological help. So like they really need the help and they couldn't afford it. So they reach like to anyone, like just to be heard or just to be like to reach out. And that's why like it became so attractive for people or to start like saying they were therapists.
Okay, so tell me how society looks upon psychotherapy or any psychological help.
In Mexico, I would say there are like two attitudes towards psychotherapy and psychological help. I would say like from millennials below, like from kids to people that are like in their 40s now, they really look and are seeking for mental health assistance. Is like basics for them. I would say grow like 70-80% of the people reach psychotherapist, and yeah, like they do it and they're happy with it and they're like really aware of their well-being, and there's like a really growing acceptance for therapy, counseling, and all these valuable tools of self-discovery. I feel this is also related that we have a lot of access to information education through social media and through other countries who are like more advanced than Mexico in this matter. And yeah, younger generations tend to be more open-minded about mental health and seek therapy. On the other hand, people like, 40, 50 and above, they have this really big stigma and misconceptions about psychology and psychotherapy. Mostly in more traditional or like conservative communities, there's less increasing recognition of the importance of mental health. And they would just say, like just fix it yourself or just like do it yourself. So these are like the two opposites. But we have also other contexts when the average psychotherapy here in Mexico, it's 10 times of daily salary for the average Mexican. So like for an average Mexican to go to therapy, they would need like to work 10 days and just pay one therapy session. In other contexts that they have not this access to it, like they really want it, but we don't have government made like the infrastructure to work with people and to give like quality and good psychological tools for people. So yeah, we have a really big opportunity here, and people and society are working through these NGOs and like for organizations that just want to help people. This, on the other hand, it's like a really big contrast among like social classes.
The social security help, like there is no psychological there, or the help that they offer, it's not of good quality?
Both. In one hand, they don't have space to have the attention for that people. And when they do have, like when they do get like a space or like a session, like they cannot go weekly or even monthly. So it's just easier like to give a wrong diagnosis. And sometimes I've came across people who have given like psychiatric pills that they didn't have to take just so they could feel better and like stop bothering like the government for help. So yeah, like it's really sad they don't have professionals, not even for like medical health. Social security, it's really bad in Mexico. Hospitals of the government, they are like at their full capacity all the time. They are gonna take just like the most vulnerable people. And if you're young or if you're strong, like they will leave you out and they will tell you like, no, go home, we don't have space for you. So this is really bad even for a regular doctor. So for psychotherapy, they don't have the funds and they don't have the help for people. So yeah, it's really sad.
And what is the cost of average therapy session?
In social security, it's supposed to be free, but regular psychotherapy, I would say around like 50 euros. Yeah, 1,000 pesos. And the average wage here, it's like 10 euros, like 200 pesos
Per day.
per day. Yeah.
And you also mention stigma among older generations. Do you maybe know what kind of stigma there is around psychotherapy, mental health?
Mexicans tend to be like strong in all the ways, like so hardworking. We love to complain about everything, but like we do stuff. So older generations, they say like we've been through war, we've been through like hunger, we've been through poverty, we've been through like bad governments. So why are you complaining you feel sad? So why are you complaining like your marriage is not working? Like just fix it, just work for it. Like you have like the willpower to do it. Yeah, they say like you can just fix it yourself. It's just stupid like to go tell someone. Or even on the other hand, like just talk to your family, like they love you, they will help you and they're not gonna charge you for a session.
Is there any other profession that people tend to turn to?
But yeah, Mexico, it's a really religious country. And most of the population, it's Catholic. The figure of the priest, it's also like really strong and like it has a lot of authority. So they would turn a lot to priests in the local parishes to seek for help, to talk, to ask for advice. So yeah, like priests are really good. And in more rural communities, they have like this, not shaman figure, but they have like this head of the town that it's like the one that rules everything, but like low key, not officially. And they would turn like to them. Mothers are also like this authority figure that people turn to ask for advice, especially when they're like we're talking about teenagers or kids. Like they go to mothers or grandmothers to ask how to deal with some things.
Okay, so tell me more about this. Tell me more about child-parent relationship in your culture and whether this value of society also influence how you design your interventions.
I believe in Mexican society, parent relationship is typically regarded to child's development and well-being, but the values of Mexican culture emphasize the importance for elders and really strong family bonds. Parents are often like seen as authority figures. Like it doesn't matter how old are you, if you're 50 or 60 and you'll still have your parent, you still have to obey what they say and respect what they say and like be in the same line as they are. So they are like providers for guidance, love, and like support for the family. These cultural values, they shape the expectations, influencing like how parents interact with their children, because the child perceives like the family unit, and when they like betray the family unit and the parent-child relationship, when they betray that, all the values they have, they're in danger. So when talking about therapy interventions, they take like the therapeutic bond an authority, like someone that is superior, almost like what we were saying about like the priest. They see it like someone that is superior, so they have to have respect. And sometimes I've had like mostly teenagers that they're like, how am I supposed like to talk with you? Am I supposed to obey you? Can I say whatever I like? So mostly kids and teenagers that they see therapists with respect, and it's hard to promote like the freedom and like the own judgment, and that the client do whatever they please, because we are really used to obeying someone and like following someone else's beliefs. So I believe like the parent and child relationship is really strong, and family bonds are like really strong. They influence pretty much like therapeutical interventions.
And if a adult client would come to you and said, I don't want to contact with my parents anymore, how would you approach as a therapist?
In my approach, of course, I would let this person find why first. And if we've evaluated this is the best for him or for her, definitely I would support it. But seeing it like culturally, it would be really hard. Like this happens a lot with more liberal ways of thinking, people that are like more open or that they want like different stuff. They get most of the times in a situation or in a problem with their families, with their parents, with their no. So I've seen a lot of breakups between kids and parents, or teenagers and parents. But I believe at the end of the day, they always seek for this reassurance, even though the people like want to move out or to say they don't want to talk anymore. I've seen them most of the times come back. This is also a factor because in Mexico, young adults are not that young. They don't move out their houses until they get married. I've seen people that are like 30, 35, 36, and they have their jobs and they have like this independence, like financial independence. They're in their business, but they still live with their parents because they like have to honor this respect to like their household. So it's really hard to break those bonds and to let people separate like from their parents. So in my position, of course, I would support what the client wants, but socially it would be hard for them like to break totally.
And the way I understand you, people want to live with their parents, or they want to live alone, but they can't because of this social pressure.
I feel it's both. There are some people in this last decade that they're moving out, but like socially, when they want to move out, they can move out and they like manage it. And mostly like moms would make like cry and say like, no, don't leave me, don't go. But at the end of the day, most of the times they do it. Like they're starting to do it. But also I think we are really used to be comfortable. So they would live in their parents' house, like they would have their full salary for them, like to spend in fun or traveling. And they would have someone like to cook for them, to clean for them, like to do everything for them. And they don't have to bother about it. So sometimes I've seen young adults live in their parents' house and use it like a hotel. They just come, sleep, and they would have everything tidy and food warm. So there's not a reason why would they want to leave.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the role of the mother, or how mothers are perceived in your culture, and maybe also how fathers are perceived in your culture?
Mexico, it's a really mother-like culture. Mothers and grandmothers, and the female role is really strong. In Mexico, there are a lot of single mothers that like work and they take care of their kids. So they are perceived like with a lot of respect. Even when you want to insult someone in Mexico, like the insult you use, it's about their mother. So it's like the most precious thing for a Mexican. And fathers, we've been fighting in Mexico with this feminism because men in Mexico, there's like this stigma because we had a reality like last century and the last decades where men tend to be like violent and aggressive, and a lot of people grew up with abusive fathers and a lot of alcohol and like this strong, like men in Mexico cannot cry and they have to be tough and they fight. The figure of men it's really strong and tough, and women have the last say in the family, like they even manage what the father wants, but they are like more lovable and they have like all the control. They are super, super, super control freaks, like the stigma of mothers in Mexico. Like they have everything handled.
As a mother, if you don't follow this rule, are you judged, or how are you perceived if you are not following the rules?
These last years, everything in Mexico it's getting more expensive. So before, the common thing was just for the father or the man in the house to work, and the mom would stay home and like take care of everything, like this traditional way of doing things. 20 years ago, there was a need for both to work, for both to take care of kids. So we are like transitioning this that I see in other countries happen like 50 years ago in Mexico. And I know in some countries in Latin America, we're still in this transition for women like to be accepted on the world, like as they are, to work, to take care of kids, but also not be in the house like for 8 hours when they're at the office. So like silently it's bad seen, like society would like judge you if you do it, but thankfully there are a lot of women like standing up and working and like breaking these parameters like traditional society had before.
What are the learned beliefs regarding client-therapist relationship, and can the relationship continue outside the therapy once the therapy process is over?
I would say the first is respect. In Mexican culture, for therapists, it's really important as we have like, a lot of diversity. We've been taught like to respect in the first place. So like they see it as someone that is superior. And myself in my practice, I try a lot to break these because I believe the bond you create with the client, of course, within like professional boundaries, but it's the thing that heals the person and that helps like go. But in general, there's a lot of respect and like authority. The second, I would say, it's confidentiality and trust. For Mexicans in general, there's really easy to open up. Most of Mexicans, I would say, they're like extrovert and they love to talk and to interact to each other. So in therapy, it's really easy for people like to come and talk and just say everything, like they're really open. And trust is a really important value in Mexico. We all trust each other. So in a client-therapist relations, there has to be trust. And therapists have to be like a trustworthy, confident, whom they can share everything. I would say also this emotional support. They seek, Mexicans in general, we seek a lot of reassurance as we're like transitioning and changing a lot of social paradigms. So maybe what clients are doing, it's like out of the social context, or what they want, it's like different for what their family wants. So they look for a lot of reassurance in therapy sessions. And I would say, according to the strict ethical code, clients and patients can have like these dual relationships. For example, if you have a client that sells like skincare products, me as a therapist, I'm not allowed like to buy her products because I'm her therapist. Or if I have a client who is a lawyer and I have like a question about like the law or something that I want to proceed, ethically, I cannot do it because they would be like a dual relationship. Like the strict code said, like 2 years after the process is over, you can have like access, I don't know, to a service or contact them for something. Or I have patients that are psychologists and I refer patients to them, and that's okay. I would say you can have relationship professional, And I would say like 5 years after no contact, you could have like a personal relationship with them. That's what like the theory says, but I've seen in the practice, we don't have like a good regulation in Mexico of the ethical code. So people do it. And sometimes they have these dual relationships that personally, I believe they harm a lot, like the therapeutical bond.
Is supervision a must for a therapist in your country?
Not legally, no, I would say no. It's a really good practice, and they, in most courses and masters, they encourage you to do it. Sometimes it's a must for you, like to graduate for your master's degree to have supervision. But when you end that, you are like not enrolled in anything. So yeah, like if you don't have supervision, no one would tell you.
And once you finish the school, what is the practice? Does a few therapists come together and open the practice together, or you work alone?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's how do you prefer? I work alone. I have my office like myself, and I have friends that are therapists, and we refer like patients. It's also really common when you just finish your practices to gather in a group that there's like a therapist that I don't know has 20 or 30 years of experience and they have this big center and they have like young therapists like working there while they get their clients and then they can separate. But yeah, I believe that's either way. How would you prefer? Like to be in a group, to be by yourself? Sometimes you can work at clinics like mental health clinics or hospitals, but I would say mostly like people work by themselves and they just have like this circle. Like I have a circle of therapists, like we talk, we discuss cases, we see like how do you feel about these, or we refer patients. Like you have support, but it's not like formal, you know.
And is it hard to get clients in Mexico?
I think depending where you live. I live in Mexico City. Luckily, I have a lot of, like, I don't have spaces now for more clients, but I've seen people in other states in Mexico. They are even more conservative, so they are more closed to therapy. So I've seen people struggle a lot to get clients, that they can have one, two, or three clients a week. Yeah, but I believe in Mexico City, if you like studied in a good school. For me, it was good when I did my master's degrees. For example, like professors that are like therapists that have a lot of experience. If you're a good student, they will send you clients. So yeah, that's how you start 2, 3, 4 years ago. And then like mouth to mouth, they start recommending and they start, but yeah, once in a while you'll see like in the newspaper like an announcement that said like I'm a therapist. I'm giving therapy like almost for free. Call this number, you know? But no, I would say mostly there are a lot of clients in Mexico City.
What are the most common complaints that a client comes to therapy for?
Mostly millennials and below, we are not used to have stress in any way. We are used to have like everything right away. Like, I don't know, I want new headphones. I would just order them and I have them tomorrow at my doorstep, or I want a pair of shoes and I can buy them, or I want to eat Asian food and I can get it right away. Like we have access to everything, but I know life doesn't work that way. You won't get a pay raise in a day. You won't get in love in 1 week. You cannot get valuable friendships in 2 months. So for one hand, we have everything like right away, and like real life takes time, you know? So I would say distress intolerance is like the biggest and general complaint for clients to come to therapy. And in my case, I'm specialized in eating disorders, so I have a lot of clients that struggle with this. Sadly, it's growing a lot here in Mexico.
And if you would share one tool, belief, or approach that is a must have for you as a therapist, what would that be?
I would say creativity and not being afraid like to fully connect with your client. Because when you fully connect and you are like mindfully there with your client and you're open with creativity, I don't know, for new analogies, for new examples, specifically for that client, and you're not focused like in every little technical step you have to follow or every rule. So when you open up and connect with the people that it's in front of you, and you see it as a person with real struggles, with real passions, with real, like, someone who loves people, no? Like, you see it as a person, as a client, and not something like we almost do mechanically sometimes. And like you're used like to see a lot of people, you fully try to connect and open up like to that person in a specific.
So I want to thank you for taking this time and doing this interview with me today.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you so much for counting me in for your beautiful project.